So our next subtitle is the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, all of this happens right around December of 1862, the Battle of Fredericksburg, and then some things that we're going to talk about here. So in December of 1862, there is a betrayal in Lincoln's cabinet. Chase, whose name is actually Salmon P. Chase, yes, salmon like the fish, he's Lincoln's Secretary of the Treasury, and he is conspiring against Lincoln with some members of Congress. And a bit about Chase. He's from Ohio, and he's been very ardently an abolitionist from very early on. And he doesn't think that Lincoln is quite doing enough to combat the issue of slavery. But his real target isn't actually Lincoln, it's Lincoln's Secretary of State, Seward. They think, or they kind of say, that Lincoln is being controlled by Seward. But Lincoln is a pretty good politician, and he very accurately figures out that their real problem isn't with Seward at all. It's actually with Lincoln and his leadership. They're just kind of hoping that Seward has been controlling him, and maybe Lincoln will do what they want. So Lincoln calls some emergency meetings with his cabinet and with Congress, and eventually deals with the issue. And at the end of it, Chase offers to resign from the cabinet, but Lincoln refuses his resignation. And at this point, he wins over his cabinet fully, and he has total control of his cabinet and the loyalty of his cabinet. And it really shows how good of a statesman Lincoln is. Also, around the same time, he issues the Emancipation Proclamation. He announces it in December, but it takes effect. Well, actually, he initially announces it in September, but it takes effect officially on January 1st of 1863, which is right about the halfway point of the war, a little bit less. And this is a game changer for the Union. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation is actually an executive order, which is not a law passed by Congress, but an order issued by Lincoln. And he thinks that he has the authority here because this is part of the war effort. Now, Lincoln knows that the Constitution does technically protect slavery. So even if he doesn't like slavery, he acknowledges that he cannot legally get rid of it. Except now, this is part of war, and Lincoln is the commander in chief. So this is his legal attempt to outlaw slavery. Now, it actually only calls for the emancipation of the slaves in all rebelling lands, beginning January 1st of 1863, which means not slaves in Union states like Maryland and Kentucky, the border states that had slavery but did not secede. So this is significant because they're trying very, very hard to keep those border states. But he's also hoping that this will kind of take away some of the base of support in the South, because the South is using their slaves to build up fortifications and do all sorts of tasks for their army. So Lincoln thinks that he can legally come out against slavery and technically free the slaves in those lands. Of course, it cannot technically happen because the Confederacy doesn't have to listen to Lincoln at this time. They've declared themselves a separate country. So we'll talk about the importance of the Emancipation Proclamation next.